All right, guys, welcome back to Hobson's Choice Harleys. We're still working on the 81 FLT. Wanted to kind of recap. We were fighting tooth and nail on this clutch hub. So I did break down and I bought the hub puller. You know, I've been doing this over 30 years. I've never had a problem. Even putting this hub puller on here, I had to run this huge deal inside that hub and against here to get that to break free. So that thing was seized on there, but it was worth 30 bucks to buy the actual tool. It will do 3 hub, 5 hub, and do Evo. So there's a lot of bikes I can pull clutches with and do it the right way. So I needed to make sure we got that on film because I know I'll catch grief about the way I was beating on that to get it out. So we got that out. We're going to go ahead and pull this primary here in a minute, clean up our mess. The reason I was beating on that is I didn't really care. The rivets on this thing are blown. The steel plates, the fibers, everything on this thing is so crusty it's not worth running. So I didn't care if I beat it up a little bit. I just wanted to save the primary. So all of those are going in the round file. I've got lots of clutch plates. The steels could probably be cleaned up, but I've got 4 or 5 good sets. And I think they're probably half warped. So we're just going to get rid of a bunch of this stuff that is not good for anything. I am keeping the clutch basket, the chain, the compensator sprocket, all that stuff's in good usable shape. So we're going to cut these safety wires out of here. We're going to pull this inner primary. I've got a guy who might want this. He's pretty sure that it's different from 82 to 81. That number I sent him, everything I see on that number is 1979 to 1984. Touring bike, so I'm sure it'll fit his bike, but he's a little nervous, and I'm good with that. You know, if he's not sure and doesn't want to, you know, take the risk, that's fine. If he don't buy it, somebody else will. So before we get to that, I'm going to grab a screwdriver. These old handlebar controls on that set of bars over there on the floor, I've got a guy who's actually already paid me for those. They're right for his 76 Sportster, so he wants these controls. So we're going to pull these off and get them in the mail to him tomorrow. And then we'll get back on the 81, tearing it apart. There was another guy in one of the groups, and I mentioned it. He was looking for iron head clutch stuff. So this is iron head clutch assembly here, complete. There's 5 of them sitting in there. The hub I told you I didn't want to mess up. There's another one right there. So that's big twin hub. That one's runnable. Looks like I got a couple belt drives in here. So I don't know on any given day what parts I've got and what parts I don't. And spoiler alert, I'm actually going this weekend down south to Socorro and buying another truckload of parts. So after this video, the next video is probably going to be us unloading. There's 3 front ends, 2 frames, a motor, handlebars, fenders, tanks, just a bunch of stuff. I actually got really lucky. A buddy of mine, Jesse, who did the pinstriping on Softail Sally. Me and him have come pretty tight. He's a fun guy. He found this stuff. It's in Socorro. It's about 80 miles from here, hour-and-a-half's drive. And as luck would have it, he has to leave for work. In fact, he left for work today, and the lady is desperate to get this stuff out of her house, and he's going to be gone for 3 weeks. So I told him I would save it for him, and he said, nah, he wasn't worried about it. There is a pristine ratchet top transmission that he wants, so I told him he could have first dibs on that and anything he wants. I mean, if it weren't for him, I wouldn't have found that stash of parts. So kind of cool. There's another round swing arm with a, I'm not sure yet because I haven't seen the backside. It's either a mid-star or an actual star hub like that goes on the knucklehead. So that wheel itself's worth 400 bucks, and the swing arm's worth 300 bucks. So for what I'm paying for the whole truckload of parts, that wheel and swing arm will almost pay for it. Okay, so we almost got this off. What I got to do is make sure that master cylinder doesn't have any fluid in it, because if that drips out, that hydraulic fluid drips out in the box when you ship it, the post office gets real pissy at you. And I'm going to pull these old square mirrors off because they're in good shape. They're pretty cool. And I'm not sure where they're going, but they're not going with the controls. I'm thinking I might use those on the knucklehead because they're low profile. Kind of a cool set of mirrors. So once we finish this, we'll get back to the FLT And at some point, I've got to get 4 more sheets of pegboard and get back to stacking stuff on the walls because I'm hemorrhaging parts. I didn't got no room for them. And what do? I keep buying more and more. Okay, so we've got one set of controls. I'm going to just get these screws started so we don't lose them. And I'm going to set this by the back door so I don't forget to get these in the mail tomorrow. So there's one. There's one. And I don't know, so this one's got 3 Phillips and 1 Allen. I don't know which one's right and which one's wrong. I think most of these old ones actually came with Phillips head screws, but who knows. You don't find 40-year-old controls very often. And not only are they all complete, they've all got the wiring harnesses still. So he'll be much happy with them. We're gonna take these over to the bench. I'm gonna pull those mirrors off and then we'll shift gears here. Okay, so what do we need? Looks like a 1/2 inch ought to do it. Or we might cheat and go that way because all my tools are over there on the ground. And I had to use so much of that PB blaster to get that stuff out. And that stuff, as good as it works, it's slimy, it's nasty. I mean, you can see just by looking at the can, that residue that it leaves behind is gross. So I'm probably going to have to move everything off of that parts washer and douse all my tools in that. Give everybody a cleaned up workspace and we just keep plugging away. Okay, so we got this cool old school set of square mirrors for something. And we got that set of controls that goes out in the mail tomorrow. Okay guys, so we're back at it here. We're just trying to get in here and get these safety wires snipped out of the way. And then we're going to get this off and play for a little while. Then it's time to clean all these tools so we can make a semblance of order out here. Because the shop is just a nightmare right now. So let's see. Now, so what is that? 9/16. So we need the 1/2 inch. We need an extension. There we go. Come on. Boy, some of those are in there. And let me guess. Yep. So we got 1/2 inch there. And then we got 9/16 back here. Is that the deal? Yep. Okay, so this one, we're still fighting our safety cables a little bit. So yeah, some of you guys that have watched before, I've talked about before, these safety cables actually originated in the airline industry. And on airplanes, just about every nut and bolt is drilled through. You can see those heads of those bolts are drilled through. And it keeps anything from backing out. And if something does back out, it can't even go a full revolution because that wire keeps it from spinning. Especially in a place like this. So Harley only did it in the primaries. But you can tell if this bolt I'm on right here, if it was to go loose with that clutch basket and that double chain going at 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 revolutions per minute, and one of those bolts, it doesn't even have to come loose. It could just come out far enough to touch the chain. It wouldn't have to necessarily come completely out, and the amount of devastation and destruction would be astronomical. It'd just be amazing what kind of damage it would be. So, and then again, so you can see the bolts have the holes through them. And then these very specialized washers, see how the washer has a tab on either side? So when you put it on, you tighten it down and then you roll that tab over and see the hole? The hole goes through the tab washer, through the bolt. That way that can never back out. So I save all those. Those are nice bolts, nuts and bolts to have. Now, if somebody's buying this inner primary and they want all the actual hardware for it, I can supply that, but typically I don't. See, again, that washer, I don't think even the Repop Drag Specialty V-Twin, I don't think anybody even makes those washers anymore. Oh. I'll sit there and spin on that all day. It'll never come out until I put the right socket on it. So these front ones, The older shovels don't have this. The older shovels don't have those imprints with those washers. That's just got the hole through it. And if you saw when I tore it out, that one is tied to this one so that nothing goes away on it. Nothing moves. So we're going to pull this off. Okay. And we'll double check here in a minute. Got parts everywhere. Trying to keep all the nuts and bolts for this bike in this basket. And then let me check. We're clear there. We're clear there. Okay, so I think that's it. Let me find my mallet convincer. And we're almost at a point we can start cleaning up some of those tools that are all coated in that PB Blaster stuff. All right, guys. There's my starter gear that had come out. So I can feel that she's loose, so I'm going to try without a lot of force. Okay, so see, we're loose here. See the gap there? And there, that's the one I was looking for. There's my 7/16 socket that I dropped. Do we got anything still holding us? So that's that transmission assembly. So this is first generation of those 5-speeds. So people say they're good transmissions, but they don't fetch much dollar-wise, which I'm kind of surprised because what are you going to do if you got this your bike and you don't have the transmission? So we're just trying to dissect what's going on because that primary doesn't want to come off. And since I'm not familiar with this style, I'm just making sure I'm not goofing anything up. Just feels like something's still holding over by that transmission. Something down below is holding us. So it could be this. This is just an oiler. It shouldn't be this. And then we've got this boss here. So I don't know if there's a bolt from the back side of that. We're going to have to look at that. And unfortunately, this is one I don't have a book for. My Shovelhead books go to 1978, prior to them changing all this stuff around. So we might have to Google that. We'll see. And if so, we can just shift gears. It's no big deal. We got to pull that front fender off. We got to pull that rear fender off. We got to pull them shocks off. One of the parts that I know people will be looking for is this enclosed primary. So this whole box encloses your rear chain. They say the life expectancy on a rear chain on one of these bikes is like forever because it has an oil bath. That chain's running in oil all the time. Kind of a cool setup. Everyone I've talked to says they're horrible to work on. So I don't know. We'll see how much fun we have trying to get it off of there. So that is connected through the back to something. Should just be a hose. All right. Well, I ain't found it yet. So what we're going to do, we're going to pull this oil out of here. We're going to clean up all these tools, wipe everything down, so I can get under there and take a look because we don't want to goof anything up on this. All right, guys. So we're just keeping on. I did clean up all my tools. Gave the floor a little bit of a wipe down. So we're just trying to figure this out. So it looks like to me that this enclosed chain deal is bolted to the back of that primary. So we're going to see if we can't get in there and see what's going on. No matter what, I got to figure out how that primary comes out. And I want to salvage that chain system because there's a lot of guys looking for those. So sometimes you just got to pause and come back at it from a different angle, which is what we did. Cleaned up our mess so we could start fresh. Wiped all the tools down, put them all away in their happy places. And now we're tearing them all back out of the toolboxes and going at it again. All right, so that mount, a lot of these parts are going on the wall. So it looks like to me we got a bolt there and we got a bolt there. So we got 4 bolts that have this boot going to the inner primary. So we got to figure out how to get to those and what flavor they are. They look like a 7/16, and it looks like we're only going to get in there with a wrench, not a socket. So let's see. All right. So it's not a 7, it's a 3/8, of course. Not a 3/8 either. All right. So is it a 5/16 or Oh man, it's an Allen head. Okay. Well, that bites. Well, no way I can get in there with an Allen head. I might actually have to drop this rear wheel to get in there. But it seems like we're still awful tight there. Let me lay down here in the dirt and the grease. Make mama happy. Where is... Well, there's the oil filter. Aha. So I don't have to get up. The top blue drawer over there, get me a 9/16 and a half wrench. Aha. So there's one issue. I was wondering, I figured this thing had to have an oil filter, so there's the oil filter. And I found one bolt hiding under here. So somehow or another, I've got to get these rubber boots off because they are tied to that inner primary. But just for giggles, no, she's still on there. All right, so back to my sockets. All right, guys, so we got a mess going now. So I finally got these stripped bolts to loosen up. And I didn't think there was any oil left in here, but sure enough, as you can tell, that's why those chains last forever. It's also why everybody threw this stuff away when they bought them. First time they did a tire change or any work on the bike, because these are just a nightmare to deal with. But one of you guys out there knows the rarity of these oil bath systems, and they really are a good system. It's just they're a pain in the ass. But somebody who's building a bike and they want it all factory original, this is the only way to do it, is to have that oil bath. So if you need the parts, let me know. I'm taking it apart diligently so everything is functional and making a mess while I do it.